Hello viewers, have you ever wondered, is it possible to beat the bloody Megane in Group 4 on Gran Turismo? The answer is no, obviously, but we're going to give it a try by being in a Megane. I suppose the only way to beat them is to join them. So here we are then, at Alsace. Last time I called it Alsace and I got absolutely hammered for it. So, you know what, I'm going to call it Alsace because, well, that's the mean potential of it, you know, just call it something deliberately wrong and get everyone triggered because it's funny. Just funny watching everyone go mental in the comments. Anyway, into turn 1 and well up the inside. Get out of the way, mate. Aggressive GT coming through, although he's going to fight back now. So he's in the other Megane, the former OP wagon of Group 4, and I'm driving the Megane Trophy, which was very recently added into the game, which is an extremely grippy car, very, very grippy, as we just bundle in really wide and deep. I'm going to try and slow down here, let him go back through, there we go. And the Brit on my right hand side there gets punted off onto the side of the track. So Alsace or Alsace, whatever the hell you want to call it. Interesting circuit this. It has a very unusual flow to it, quite unlike any other track in the game if you ask me, but it's one that poses a very nice challenge and it isn't easy to get right. There are lots of different types of corners and, well, the Megane that I'm driving here should make sure work of it. We'll see. Around the outside, the German, he really didn't quite understand that corner, as he braked way too much, up into third, somehow without penalty. But we go on, life goes on, as we try to hunt down the other Megane here. It looks like the leader has bolted. He was the fastest person, I think, in qualifying. So with all this fighting going on, it's not a surprise to see him drive off into the distance at this early stage. So the other Megane, very quick in a straight line. I'm going to try to tuck into the slipstream to try and capture some of that speed for myself into the final turn then. A little bit deep, we're going to come back for that late apex, and by apex I mean we got nowhere near the apex in reality. So we're on the back foot now, a couple of quick guys behind, open up the space on the inside. Is he going to go for it? Not quite, as I go in very deep, so not the fastest line, but it does prevent the guy behind from going up the inside, so it kind of worked out well there. I mean, in fact, looking behind, the gap's even bigger and I've got loads of them to get penalties. So 3 Germans trying to hunt me down. It's like, and we're in France, it's like I'm some sort of spy during World War II. And the leader there actually making a big mistake coming out of that turn. Couldn't quite see what he did, but he's lost a lot of time either way. So the other Megane there, the Spaniards has definitely gained on him and perhaps can put the pressure on to try to get past into, well, I don't even know what this corner number is. There's about, it seems like there's about 80 corners on this track because it just seems to go on forever. It's quite a long track. It's about 5.5 kilometres long in total length, or 3 3.25 miles for those of you who are still in 1952, which includes me because I'm in the UK, we still use miles. Anyway, so this long sweeping corner, there's plenty of these on this track, and it's the kind of corner that this car really excels in because it just has infinite downforce basically. You put it into the corner, get on the throttle, and it just goes round quite simply. Adrian Newey's obviously had a hand in this because the aerodynamics are off the scale. As we hunt down the Spaniard now, big gap behind to the German, don't quite have to worry about him for the time being. This is the end of lap number 2. It's been a good race so far. It got a little bit sketchy on lap 1, but it's calmed down. Lap 2 has been rather mundane. As we go into the turn, a little bit too deep. And is it all going to unravel? Yes, it is. 10 seconds worth of penalty. And well, this has got to be a new meme, I think. Super GT loves to ram Spaniards in the rear end, because I've done that far too many times and it's given me way too many penalties, and I'm not really learning my lesson. So through the right-hander, the German trying to come at me now. I'm still gonna keep the inside line. I'm still gonna do my best here to fight for every position that I can. You know, it's just good practice, I suppose. Even though I'm not gonna get, you know, even if I get into second, I'm not gonna finish second because of that penalty, unless of course he gets a massive penalty as well. But I can't really rely on that happening. So through the amazingly backed corner, it's almost like we're in a Hot Wheels game set or something. Going through there, just dabbing onto the grass like Paul Pogba, but we recover just in time to keep our position from the German. Into the 90-degree left here, on the throttle okay this time around. Penalties on 9.5, and I can't really envision myself being able to get rid of that before the end of the race. It's a big penalty. If it was maybe 3 seconds, there's a chance. Sometimes on the tracks though, you can find a corner where the penalty kind of just goes down, where you're not really going any slower than normal. So that hasn't really happened on this occasion though. I've near enough done a lap since the incident, and it hasn't really gone down at all. So I'm going to have to get past him and then drive 10 seconds clear, which is basically impossible. It's not quite going to happen. But we're going to basically forget about that, just hope that I can get past him, just fight for the position. I think I was definitely carrying way too much speed into this first and second corner, which is why I kind of brushed someone aside on the first lap and then made the incident on lap 3. So that time hitting the apex a lot better, and you want to get over to the right hand side before this left hander up the hill, as I think overall that is the best line to take. So on lap 4 we finally get our line sorted. You see they're just pulling away from the German, so hoping that they start fighting behind. Through down the kink, going to look up the inside, totally ignore the yellow flags as the leader has spun out. I'm now into the lead of the race, so I now need to drive away by 9.5 seconds within a lap, which is basically bordering on impossible. Well, we might as well give it a try, see if we can achieve it. And well, 2 mistakes by that German in the lead, 2 very big mistakes. It looked like the race was very comfortable for him, and then he makes 2, well, I was about to say uncharacteristic, but then I don't know who he is, so I don't know if maybe he makes that mistake there all the time. Maybe it's very characteristic of him to do that, I don't know, but he's made that mistake twice, and it's going to cost him the race. He's now down to 4th. I'm in the lead, although I'm not going to finish here because of that penalty. Silly penalty, you know. Well, the penalty, you know, I did hit him wide, so I can't really blame the game. I still should have avoided the contact, but silly driving by me basically is going to cost me the race. That silly hit at the beginning of lap 3, which is a shame because it would have been quite a good race to win, especially on the last lap from a big mistake from the leader. So coming up towards the final turn of the race, the other Megane there looking for the move. Is he going to look for the move? I think he did, yeah, a bit of contact into the final turn. And is he going to get a penalty for that? I don't think he is, but we're going to have to slow down to serve our one. So just a horrible moment to have to do that. In the end, there we go, finishing 5th, 4.6 seconds off. So maybe if I could have got 5 seconds clear, then I still could have won, but that was asking a lot. Ultimately, the Megane dominant, you can see there. It wasn't actually the trophy one that won though, interestingly. So it is possible to win in something other than the Megane trophy. But I want to know if it's possible to win in something other than a Megane full stop. So I'm going to be driving the Lancer Evolution this time around, which for me is sort of it's like my secret weapon for Group 4. I see it as a handling machine. I think it can match, or it can nearly match, the Megane in cornering ability. It can't quite match it, I think, overall. But if I drive a good race, then you never know. And you saw in the previous race, anything can happen. The leader can just kill himself, bin himself off. Someone could get a penalty. someone could drive into the back of me and get a 10-second penalty. So you just never quite know what's going to happen. So the unpredictability is good. We always like to see that as we go down the crest, down the dip. He's going to go defensive and cover the position, thinking about going to the outside, then sort of shimmying back into position up the inside. But the Spaniard just about keeps the position. You can see here the comparison in straight line speed, actually very similar indeed. The Megane isn't that great. That Megane isn't great in a straight line. Neither is this Evo, if I'm honest, but they both excel in the corners. This track has plenty of long, winding corners where you need the infinite downforce. So I wouldn't quite say that this guy is infinite downforce, but you're bordering on it. You're getting there. The Megane has somehow conquered that feat of infinite downforce, but the Japanese with Mitsubishi are aren't quite on that pinnacle of physics just yet. But we're going to try to reel in the leader here. Another Spaniard. The Spaniard's very, very quick on this game. It's hard to say which is the quickest nationality, but I'd definitely say that Spain is up there. Spain definitely does have some very fast drivers, and we'll do our best to try to win this one. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy at all, as well. He was the pole sitter. He was the fastest person going into the race, and I'm not driving the best car. I'm not in a Megane, basically. So I mean, this series could be a series, me versus Meganes. I've already made 2 videos on it, where you're just trying to fight a Megane and trying to beat them in something different. And I mean, it's quite simple why that's come about. It's because the Megane is just so ridiculously fast. Not in terms of acceleration or whatever, but just in terms of overall lap time. So you see the tap in the rear end there. I'm going to get a 1 second for that. He's going to get a 5 second. So I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, really, because I didn't really mind that contact. I'd quite happily take that contact. And it could set a worrying precedent where you could just kind of brake check people and give them 5-second penalties. But there is a recent update where that should be eliminated from here on in. So he's got a 5 second to worry about. I've got a 1 second to worry about, which, well, the difference of that is 4. So as long as I finish at least 4 seconds behind him, then I should be good. The leader just pulling away. It's going to be unlikely that I can catch him because it just seems so consistent. And 9 times out of 10, the fastest guy from pole is just going to drive off if they've got the gap. But as I said, previous race we saw it. The German just binned himself twice on the same corner, so you never quite know. And you must always give it your all till the end. The Megane behind, driving very wide. That's quite uncharacteristic of that car to just drive off the track. Obviously, I think it's just pushing a little bit too hard. That's something that can easily happen. Once you get a penalty, you overcompensate for it by driving way too hard and aggressive, and then you lose even more time. So I suppose once you get that penalty, you've got a Felipe baby, stay cool and just get going. Basically, just keep going at your standard pace. Don't really overcompensate too much. You don't want to lose too much time, and just hope that you can kind of just drive consistently to the end of the race. And you just never know. Some of the races can go on, so even if you got a penalty early, you could quite easily switch and someone else could get a penalty later on. Into the first and second corner complex, taking it very nicely. The Evolution here, very, very planted car, very easy to drive. It's maybe, I'd say, about 95% of the handling capability of the Megane, which is good, but obviously not a Megane. And in terms of top end or acceleration, it's very similar. So it's not too far off. But I would say that Group 4 does need to be looked at because the balance isn't quite there at the moment. We saw it with the other Megane. That used to be really OP and everyone would use that. It's now switched quite firmly to the Megane Trophy since that was released into the game. I say that as if it's like a zoo animal. It's caged and then you sort of like release it into the wild and it just goes and kills everyone. Just kills the native animals or the cars that are roaming around freely, and to get eaten up and chewed by this Megane, which is just brutally killing them on the circuits around the world. That seems to have happened here. We've got this invasive species of Megane trophy, and it's just dominating the food chain. But this Lancer doing a good job of trying to show that something else can sort of win out. And I mean, I am second out of 16, so it could be worse. Not too bad at this moment. The guy in third actually catching up on this lap. It wasn't the best lap at all, and I suppose we have our work cut out. He does have that penalty, let's not forget, so it's not going to be easy for him. I can still afford to let him go past and just stick with him. I'll still probably beat him at the end, so there's no point in fighting that one too much if it does come to that. So hitting the apex nicely for the final corner, onto the accelerator, and we're about to head over the line to begin the final lap of 4, and it's actually slowed right down there. See the gap from second to third going up to from 2 seconds to 3 to 5, so that's basically race over, and the gap ahead is way too big. It's not going to go down anymore, and you can see here by the end of the race the leader finishing 5 seconds ahead, I finished 11 seconds ahead of third. So that's actually quite a good result. It kind of shows you that you can use something else. It is track dependent, but you can use something else to try to beat the Megane. So overall, a good race, up to second, 1 position gained, and a fairly clean race overall. So I'm going to show you something very different here. I don't normally go for daily race A. Normally in a road car, I don't normally go for it, but I thought I'd boost my rating a little bit. Well, a tiny bit. It's always a risk, because if you're racing against rubbish people and you win even by a mile, then you're not really improving by too much. But it's, I suppose, as a way of improving your general skill of the game, it's always good to experience different cars, different tracks, and just try to push yourself out there a little bit. So polled it quite easily. Let's see how we can tackle the Willow Springs circuit, driving the Dodge Challenger. Now this circuit is an interesting one. I would like to race it a little bit more often actually. It looks simple, but it really isn't, especially this section coming up here. Very, very technical indeed, and you have a lot of elevation change through this section, which can really mess up your lines and test your ability. And this car, it really is not easy to drive at all. It does like to slide, very heavy, very cumbersome, so you do have to get the anchors on very early to make sure the car will go around the corners. It does like to slide. You see they're just going pretty much sideways with no forward momentum at all. Lucky the car didn't roll over. But I've got through that area okay. Just scanning behind, we are good to escape from the pack. Coming up into the final corner, this is a very difficult corner, because you've got this very sort of long curved entry, and then again you've got this another long curved entry into this corner. So knowing exactly where to brake, you're trying to brake in a straight line, but it's really hard to do. Trying to brake while going around the corner at the same time as, yeah, I don't know, it's a hard one, let's put it that way. I mean, this first corner is probably about the easiest corner on the track. You've got the braking markers on the right hand side, braking just before the 100 and just throwing it into the apex. That's about as simple as it gets. A nice winding open corner that, and the rest of the lap is actually a lot more tricky. Just trying to keep it consistent in this kind of race is clear. It was clear from qualifying. I'm the fastest person in this race, got the highest rating, I should win it. So this is the way I think of most motorsport. You know, if you just sort of got to run the numbers, and the numbers were there to show that I should be winning this race. So you just got to drive clinically, not too much point in like really pushing too much and risking crashing. Just got to go round, and I should be able to win this race after 5 laps. So the first lap was sub 90 second lap. Not always going to be the best lap, of course, because, well, you know, it was a sub 100 second lap. As we now come down the hill towards the final corner. It's only a 5 lap race. I think once I can get a nice enough gap here, then I should be safe from here to the end of the race. Actually no, it was a sub 90 second lap. I can't even read. This one is looking to be a little bit quicker. Actually, wait, what am I talking about? No, it was a sub 100 second lap, but this one is going to be almost a sub 90, but not quite. I don't think I can quite do that. So that was the end of that race, ultimately getting the fastest lap in the final lap, actually 1:32, so just shy of the 90-second barrier. But a good victory, and it's always good to win a couple of races, even if the opponents weren't that great. So you can see there, pole position, fastest lap, and clean race. I do hope you enjoyed the video as always, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe for more, hit the like button if you enjoyed, and I shall see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.